Pravrajika Shuddhatmaprana is an ordained nun of the Vedanta Society of Southern California, currently resident at the Vivekananda Retreat in Ridgely, New York. For many years, she's been active in the publication work of the Ramakrishna Order, editing numerous books and articles. She's also written many articles and is the author of 2 books, The Divine World of the Alvars and Indian Saints and Mystics. The subject of her talk today is She Whose Soul Was Absorbed in Ramakrishna. Welcome, Mataji.
Om Yatagner Dahika Shakti Ramakrishna Stitahiya Sarva Vidya Swarupangtang Sardang Pranamamyaham. Just as the burning power of fire resides in fire, so also you abide in Ramakrishna. To that Sarada, the embodiment of all knowledge, I offer my salutations. A salutation mantra written by Swami Sardananda. One whose soul is absorbed, or you might say saturated or immersed, in Ramakrishna. Ramakrishna Gata Pranam. We just sang this in the hymn that was sung right before the talk. So you're all familiar with this hymn. Now, you may not know that there's an interesting story connected with this hymn that was told by Swami Abhedananda. Swami Abhedananda wrote this hymn. So Swami Abhedananda wrote that in May 1888, now this is just 2 years after Ramakrishna passed away, this is 1888, Sarada Devi was then staying at Nilambar Babu's garden house in Belur, just across the Ganga from Calcutta. In those days, it was a rented house. Now it has become part of the Ramakrishna mission, part of the Belur Math property. Now, one day, Swami Abhedananda went there to see Holy Mother, and after telling her about a hymn that he had just composed, he expressed his desire to recite it for her. Holy Mother was startled and asked, "What kind of hymn? Whose hymn?" And Abhedananda humbly replied, "Mother, I composed a hymn on you." Amazed, the mother asked, "My son, what is the need of composing a hymn on me?" However, when Swami Abhedananda sincerely repeated his request, the mother decided to listen to the entire hymn. Now, when the Swami came to that part, Ramakrishna Gata Pranam, whose soul is absorbed in Ramakrishna, Holy Mother's whole body became motionless. And when he recited the next line, Tannama Shravana Priyam, who loves to hear the Master's name, tears began to roll from her eyes. And when he said, Tadbhava Ranjita Karam, whose mental state is saturated with the Master, Swami Abhedananda looked and saw that the mother was no longer there. Ramakrishna was seated in her place. Here we should note that this idea of Sarada Devi being identified with Ramakrishna was held by all the direct disciples of Ramakrishna. For instance, when Holy Mother was in Vrindavan right after Ramakrishna's passing away, she was often in high spiritual states. Swami Yogananda, who was with her at that time, said that during such periods of ecstasy, her manner of speech, her voice, her way of talking, her way of taking food, her way of walking, and her general behavior were exactly like those of Ramakrishna. He said, "We were all surprised to see the spirit of Ramakrishna united with hers. It was unique. We then realized that the Master and the Mother were one in essence, though appearing in separate forms." Swami Sardananda, too, wholeheartedly believed that Holy Mother's will was God's will. He never tried to change the Mother's will. He obeyed Holy Mother completely. He used to say, "Are the Mother and the Master different?" Once someone asked him, do you respect the Mother because she is the wife of your Guru? And the Swami Sardananda replied, "No, we respect her because she and the Master are one and the same. However, there is one difference. We could argue with the Master, but that is not possible with the Mother." But actually, this idea of the two of them being one, it came from Ramakrishna himself. Once, shortly after Ramakrishna's passing away, we call him Mahendranath Gupta, the recorder of the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna, he was talking with Narendra, who later became Swami Vivekananda. And they were talking about Holy Mother. And Narendra told one day at the Kasipur garden house, the young devotees told the Master about the Holy Mother's affection for them. And at that time, she was living at the Kasipur garden house to serve the Master. The young disciples told the Master that they had never met another woman as large-hearted as she was. And asked, "Well, what did the Master say?" Narendra replied, "The Master began to laugh, and then he said, 'She is my Shakti, so she loves all.'" And what is this Shakti? According to Ramakrishna himself, Shakti means the power of the Absolute. He often compared Brahman, the Absolute, and Shakti to fire and its power to burn, just as in the salutation mantra that Swami Sardananda wrote, fire and its power to burn. Speaking to M one day, Ramakrishna said, "As fire and its power to burn are no different, so Brahman and Shakti are the same. The one, that is Brahman, has become many. That is the manifestation of his power. How is it possible to realize Brahman without taking refuge in Shakti? The words that are used to call on him, the sound that is used to worship him, those are all functions of Shakti. You," Ramakrishna speaking to M, "you have originated from Shakti, and you move and walk by means of her power." So we can see that to Ramakrishna, Holy Mother, as his Shakti, was one with him, as fire and its burning power are one. Moreover, as we see here, Shakti is not only the power of Brahman, but also the mother of the universe. You have originated from Shakti, as Ramakrishna said to M. And to Ramakrishna, Holy Mother was this very Shakti, the mother of all. And this is why, as Ramakrishna said, she loved all. But we should also remember that just as Ramakrishna looked upon Holy Mother as the universal divine mother, Holy Mother also looked upon Ramakrishna as the universal divine mother. For instance, when the Master entered into Mahasamadhi at the Kasipur garden house, Holy Mother was living in a room downstairs, and she heard the crying upstairs, and she realized the Master had passed away. And so she rushed up the steps and cried out, "O Mother Kali, what have I done that you have departed, leaving me alone in this world?" Many years later, Holy Mother said to a disciple that she always looked upon the Master as Mother Kali. Yet to all outward appearances, Ramakrishna's and Sarada Devi's life seemed totally different. Large numbers of people came to visit Ramakrishna every day, and they often saw him merging into samadhi or singing and dancing in ecstasy. But in Holy Mother's life, such states were almost totally hidden. It's not that she never had such states, it's just that most of her life was lived away from the gaze of the public, and therefore most people, including the other villagers in her native village of Jairabadi, they could not understand who she was. Moreover, while Ramakrishna was the embodiment of renunciation and detachment, Holy Mother lived most of the time among her demanding relatives, and she seemed to be completely involved in their worldly lives. However, when we really examine Holy Mother's life, we find that these judgments are very superficial. Holy Mother was, in fact, not only the embodiment of Ramakrishna's teachings, but she also showed us how to live them. In fact, you might say that Ramakrishna left Holy Mother behind to be the exemplar of his teachings. So here we'll look at a few aspects of her life that reveal her identity with Ramakrishna. First, her renunciation and desirelessness. In Akshay Chaitanya's book, Premananda Premakatha, it is said, Holy Mother gave one of her disciples the Garawa cloth with her own hands, and then he went to Kashi. Now, giving the Garawa cloth signifies that you've given that person sannyas. Now, when he got to, Swami Premananda was then staying at Kashi, and when the disciple came there to the ashram where Swami Premananda was, one of the other sadhus there said to this disciple, Holy Mother herself is not a sannyasi, so how could she give you sannyas? Swami Premananda overheard this, and he immediately intervened in an agitated voice and said, if you can't recognize Mother's giving of the ochre cloth as sannyas, then I don't accept your version of sannyas. Now, it's true, Holy Mother never took formal vows of sannyas, yet there's not any part of her life that is not illumined with her burning renunciation. The beauty of it is that she made her renunciation looks so simple and natural that it is often overlooked. Even Akshay Chaitanya, who told this story about Swami Premananda, he said in one place that Ramakrishna's life was predominantly an ideal for monastics, and Holy Mother's life was predominantly an ideal for householders. Now, Holy Mother herself made much of Ramakrishna's renunciation and even took it as his ideal for this age. Once someone praised Ramakrishna's message of the harmony of religions to her, and she replied, my child, what you say about the harmony of religions is true, but it never seemed to me that he practiced different religions with any definite motive of preaching the harmony of religions. Day and night, he remained overwhelmed with the ecstatic thought of God. He enjoyed the sport of the divine by practicing spiritual disciplines, following the paths of the Vaishnavas, Christians, Muslims, and the rest. So he was enjoying doing this. But Mother said, it seems to me, my child, that the special feature of the Master's life is his renunciation. Has anyone ever seen such renunciation? Now, Ramakrishna in turn also praised Sarada Devi's absolute purity and renunciation. For example, when Ramakrishna refused a devotee's offer of 10,000 rupees, it was proposed that Holy Mother take it instead. But in keeping with her vow to be a helpmate in his mission, she refused. She said that her acceptance of the money would be the same as the Master's acceptance. Now, this is a more obvious aspect of her renunciation, but it is when we get to other aspects of her life that we really begin to understand what is truly meant by her desirelessness and renunciation. Now, besides money and sense pleasures, the greatest traps for human beings are the desire for name and fame, the desire for honor, and the desire for power. In order to understand what Holy Mother renounced, let us look at her situation. Even before Ramakrishna's passing away, his name began to spread all over the world, and especially in India, and he was held in high regard. Even the well-known Saint Pravrajika of Ghazipur had a photograph of Ramakrishna in his cave. And in London, the renowned scholar and Indologist Max Muller, he became fascinated hearing about Ramakrishna's life, and he immediately decided to write about him. Then, after Swami Vivekananda's success at the Parliament of Religions, Ramakrishna's name began to spread even faster. With all this, Holy Mother could easily have remained in the foreground and been at the center of an international religious movement. She could have been adored and honored by millions in her lifetime all over the world. But she would have none of it. Instead, she preferred to spend most of her time in a remote village of India, in Jairambati, cooking and cleaning, wearing simple clothes, and living a simple life in a mud hut. Swami Gombarananda gives us a glimpse of her daily life in Jairambati. At Jairambati, she tirelessly went through her daily routine, looking to the comforts of the devotees, cutting vegetables in the morning for about 2 hours, taking out supplies for the kitchen, arranging for the worship of the Master, and then worshiping him with her own hands, distributing the prasad, making at least 100 betel rolls, kneading flour, preparing the chapatis and luchis, boiling milk, cleaning lamps, and such other works followed one another without intermission and without anybody else's help, as if they were her duty alone. So it's no wonder then that the people of her village took her to be one of them. On the surface, her life seemed hardly different from that of any other village woman. Now, Swami Satprakashananda used to tell this story. In April 1923, this is 3 years after the passing away of Holy Mother, there was a grand celebration in Jairambati for the dedication of the temple for Mother there. As the festivities were going on in full swing, a village woman who had been a cousin of Holy Mother, she was seen going through the crowd exclaiming, "All this could have been mine. All this could have been mine. My father refused to marry me to that crazy man," meaning Ramakrishna. "If he had given me in marriage to him, all this would have been mine." Swami Satprakashananda said the devotees attending the event were, of course, amused. To this woman, Sarada Devi was no different from her, and if she had been married to Ramakrishna, all this honor would have been hers. That's what she thought. In fact, during Holy Mother's lifetime, many of her fellow villagers in Jairambati could not understand what all the fuss was about. They could not understand Ramakrishna, what to speak of Holy Mother. So they thought, why were people coming from all over, far-off places to see their Sarada? What was so special about her? And why was this temple built to her after her passing away? We find in the Bible that when Jesus came to teach in his hometown, people would not pay any attention to him. They said to one another, "Is this the carpenter's son?" Now, this is not to say that none of the villagers saw something of her greatness. There was one village woman, one neighbor, Banu Pishi, Aunt Banu, who adored Holy Mother and Ramakrishna from the very beginning, and even regarded Ramakrishna as her Ishta Devata, her chosen deity, Krishna. But most of the villagers were mystified. One day, a villager asked Mother, How many people come to see you, even from far off places, but we're not able to understand anything? Why is that? Mother replied, what does it matter? You are my friends, my playmates. Another man, an old watchman named Ambikacharan Bhagdi, once told Holy Mother, people call you a Devi, Bhagavati, and so on, but I don't understand anything. And Mother replied, there's no necessity for you to understand. You are my brother Ambika, and I am your sister Sarada. Actually, the villagers of Jairambati could not see anything special about Holy Mother because she did not want them to. She wanted to remain hidden. She wanted to live with them as one of them. And for this very reason, her life is often difficult to understand. It is only when we take her life as an ideal to follow that we start to begin to realize how great she was. So why did she live such a simple and ordinary life? Perhaps one reason was that she was setting an example that is sorely needed these days. She was showing people how to live a simple, ordinary life and how to be happy living a simple, ordinary life and keeping the mind on God. Again, we should remember that when Swami Vivekananda came back from the West in 1897 and started the Ramakrishna mission, Holy Mother not only had every opportunity then to become the head of this fledgling movement, or even just exert a powerful influence over it, she also had every right. Swamiji himself worshipped her, and not just as his guru's wife or as his guru, but as the Divine Mother herself. This is how he regarded her. And later, as the general public in India began reading and hearing about Ramakrishna and Swami Vivekananda, some of them came to know about Holy Mother. Naturally, then, people began to come to her, especially during her visits to Calcutta. But we should note that in spite of how much the disciples of Ramakrishna revered her, Swamiji and others, they did not publicize her. Perhaps this was at her request. I know it was at Swami Yogananda's request to Swamiji. Don't put Mother in the foreground, he told him. And Swamiji had actually, in the beginning, thought of making a mat for women and putting Holy Mother there as the head of that mat. And Swami Yogananda, who was her main attendant at that time, said, no, she must not be put in the foreground. That's not her life. And Swamiji actually understood then, and he really appreciated Swami Yogananda's advice then. Now, Swami Satprakashananda said that in those days, Holy Mother's photograph was not available for sale to the public for a long time. Her photographs were only given by the direct disciples, only given to known people, known devotees. Ramakrishna's and Swamiji's photographs were for sale, but not Holy Mother's. Swami Satprakashananda said that he himself received a photograph of Holy Mother from Swami Premananda. And again, the disciples of Ramakrishna also did not even speak about her, except to known devotees. For the most part, she was kept hidden from the general public until 1953, her birth centenary then. That was when they really started talking about her. But still, even during her lifetime, some people would hear about her from others and would come to her, even traveling the very difficult journey to Jairambati to meet her. And we should also note that it's not that she never guided the monastic order. Sometimes her judgments were sought by the other disciples and by her disciples. And they were sought in important matters, too. And then her word was taken as final. Yet still, she preferred to remain in the background. One example can be given here. After Swami Vivekananda's passing away, one of Swami Vivekananda's own disciples, who lived at Advaita Ashrama in Mayavati, he had doubts about the path of Advaita. He was more of a devotee, and he couldn't understand why they couldn't do worship at the Advaita Ashrama in Mayavati. So he wrote to Holy Mother about his doubts. Her reply, written from Jairambati, continues to be of great importance to the Ramakrishna order and to the Advaita Ashrama even today. She wrote, "He who was our guru," meaning Ramakrishna, "he was an Advaitist. You are all disciples of that guru, so you are also Advaitists. I can firmly say you are all surely Advaitavadis." The disciple probably thought, I am? Now, someone with only a casual acquaintance with Holy Mother's life might wonder how such an important issue with important consequences for the future of the order, how could this be settled once and for all by a village woman? But it was. Just like Ramakrishna, she had the knowledge, she had the realization, and all the disciples of Ramakrishna knew it. Yet, even in her knowledge and realization, we find proof of her renunciation. As Swami Vivekananda once said, knowledge is power. When you get knowledge, you get power. Here by knowledge, he was referring to spiritual knowledge, but in reality, this can apply to any kind of knowledge, as we have seen over and over again. The power and arrogance that can come from knowledge can be used for great harm. Holy Mother had that power, but like Ramakrishna, she would never think of using it for personal gain. Now, the second way Ramakrishna and Holy Mother were identical were in Holy Mother's detachment. After Ramakrishna's passing away, Holy Mother became totally detached from this world. Gopesh Maharaj, one of her disciples and attendants, he described the difference between this period of her life with the later period of her life. In the early days, he said, after the passing away of the Master, Holy Mother would often be in samadhi. Then her body would be like an inert object. He said Golat Ma and Yogan Ma would move her body as one would move a portrait from one place to another. She would have no sense of her body. The devotees would make pranams to her, offer money, clothes, fruits to her at her feet, but she remained totally unmindful of these things. Her companions and attendants would take care of these things, and other people would use them when needed, but she would never inquire about them. But after Holy Mother's niece Radhu was born, then, at Ramakrishna's command, Mother's mind came down to the normal plane. She started playing the role of a householder and took upon the responsibilities of her family. Thus, as Gopesh Maharaj says, she experienced the misery and suffering of a family life. According to one of her relatives, before Radhu was born, the mother would look like a veritable goddess, and a person would hesitate to approach her. Yet even in her later life, when she was involved with her family, she retained a detached spirit with respect to everything around her. Gopesh Maharaj wrote, though the mother lived night and day amidst the various activities of her household and was as outwardly engrossed as any one of the other inmates in the work and responsibility of the home, she would remain completely unattached in her heart. The household was, in her view, the master's. One had to remain in it, playing the part one was allotted. As Mother said, good and bad, joy and sorrow came and passed off according to one's karma. Without getting disturbed in mind by thinking about them, one should keep one's devotion to God steady and bear everything that came with patience. One should shake off the attachment for worldly objects as ducklings shake off water from their bodies. Gopesh Maharaj said, these teachings were always conveyed by the mother's instructions, behavior, and actions. Again, like Ramakrishna, Holy Mother was totally detached from money. We have already mentioned that she would not even look at the offerings that people gave her in the earlier days. But even in her later days, when she was the mistress of a large household, she never took any interest in the money that was given to her or sent to her by mail. Whatever money was received, she put in a box without counting it. And whatever money was needed for expenses, she took out of the box without counting it. It says there was no calculation of receipts or expenditures at all. In the rare instances when she herself purchased something from someone who came to the house, she would just hand them some money and let them take out what they thought was the fair amount for the item. In 1909, when Holy Mother's brothers, with whom she was living in Jairambati, when they decided to divide up the family property, giving each brother a share. Before it was a joint family, but now they're going to divide it up between the different brothers. Holy Mother doesn't count. She was a woman, you know. Now, as not uncommon in such events, the brothers got into terrible quarrels over this, and eventually Swami Sarvapriyananda had to come from Calcutta to help arbitrate this division. Swami Gombarananda wrote, relying fully on Swami Sarvapriyananda's judgment and direction, the mother kept her mind absolutely above these worldly turmoils. Drawing attention to this equipoise of the mother, based as it was on spiritual insight, Swami Sarvapriyananda said to a brahmachari, you have seen us often enough, how we flare up at seeing our slightest wish disregarded. But look at the mother. What a hell her brothers are creating, and yet how calm and collected she is at all times. When Holy Mother was asked by another of the arbitrators where she would live, with which brother, she had to live with one of the brothers. She couldn't have her own property, you know. So she replied, rats bore holes and snakes live therein. Okay, as this was not enough to settle the issue, they allotted her a house on the property of one of the brothers. It is true that for many years the Holy Mother had a strong attachment to her niece Radhu, but her biographies make it clear that she deliberately took on this attachment to keep her mind in the world. And she did this, as we said, at Ramakrishna's command. When her mind was continually soaring in high spiritual states, Ramakrishna, who had passed away long ago, appeared to her in a vision and told her to hold on to Radhu, her niece, to use Radhu as her support to remain in this world and keep her mind down. But right before Holy Mother passed away, she sent Radhu away. She did not want that bondage, that Maya, anymore. Now, the third way Holy Mother and Ramakrishna were alike was in Holy Mother's eagerness to free all human beings from the bondages of the world. In Swami Sardananda's biography of Ramakrishna, he describes how the master used to go to the roof of the owner's cottage in Dakshineshwar in the evening. He would cry out in agony for his disciples to come. "Come to me, my children. Where are you? I can't bear to live without you," he said. He yelled this, crying. And gradually they did start to come. Now, regarding this, Swami Akhandananda later said to the disciples, that Ramakrishna's cry for his devotees did not end after the coming of his disciples, his immediate disciples. Swami Akhandananda said, "That cry is still ringing through the air and shall continue for eons. Many have come after that, many are still coming, and many more will come in the future." In Holy Mother's life also, we hear of how she yearned for the devotees to come to her, especially when she was living in Jairambati. Swami Nikalananda wrote, "A silent yearning constantly welled up from her heart. Come, all you, I am here for your sake. I shall soothe my heart, showing you the way to liberation." She did not, Swami Nikalananda said, publicly summon devotees, but drawn by her irresistible attraction, they came, and she seemed to be waiting for them. If no devotee came on a particular day, she would say, "No one has come. This day seems to be passing in vain." And shortly afterwards, a seeker would arrive. There's also a beautiful incident described by Gopesh Maharaj in his book, The Mother as I Saw Her. One of her attendants, and it was probably Gopesh Maharaj himself, he was once asked to read aloud, this was when they were in Jairambati, he was once asked to read aloud a Bengali manuscript of the story of Dhruva. Now, this is a common thing in the villages. Someone who knows how to read well, they would read to the villagers out loud. And everybody would gather around for an evening reading. And sometimes it would go on for several days or many days. Now, the story of Dhruva is found in the Bhagavata Purana, and it's about a small boy, Dhruva, who is the son of a king by the king's second wife. Now, the son of the king's first wife was favored by the king, and this made Dhruva very unhappy. Unable to bear humiliation from the king's first wife, Dhruva took leave of his own mother and went to the forest to propitiate Vishnu in order to gain the king's favor. Now, at every step in the story, Holy Mother became more and more distraught hearing about this young boy's suffering. And she would start crying as she identified with the incidents in the little boy's life. And every time she started crying, the reader, probably Gopesh Maharaj himself, would stop until Holy Mother recovered. Gopesh Maharaj wrote, "Then the reader came to the description of Dhruva's severe austerities and of his frightful experiences in the forest. The heart of that small boy was trembling with fear, and he was crying, helpless and alone. Taking Dhruva as her own little son, Holy Mother again began shedding torrents of tears. It was only after much effort that she was able to control herself. The reader started his reading again, but the very next moment, on Dhruva's picture coming before her eyes, she again burst out crying. Soon she became very much agitated, as if her heart and soul were running to protect Dhruva in that deep forest at dead of night. Those assembled, the villagers who were assembled, including the reader, were dumbfounded seeing this unique expression of sorrow. After some time, they had to leave the place. They left quietly. The reading had to be stopped. Every heart there was steeped in sorrow. For whom? Gopesh Maharaj said. Who will answer? For whom? I think we can say Holy Mother's tears were for all of us. For all of her children who have lost their way in the frightful forest of this world. And just as Ramakrishna's cries for his children to come still ring through the air, so also I believe that cry of the mother is still ringing through the air. That moment in her life remains in the subtle atmosphere as a tearful prayer for all of her children everywhere to be saved from the terrible forest of this world. Moreover, just as Ramakrishna's call reverberated throughout the world and was for people of all races, nationalities, and faiths, so also was Holy Mother's call. It seemed that she carried the whole world, all beings of the world, in her heart. She, in fact, identified herself as the mother of everyone. No one was left out. Once she said, I do not know anyone, not even an insect, for whom I do not feel compassion. Earlier, we mentioned the incident about the young monastic disciples talking to Ramakrishna about Holy Mother, and Ramakrishna called her his Shakti. And he told them, you have originated from Shakti, and you move and walk by means of her power. So we can see that to Ramakrishna, Shakti was not only power, but was also the mother of the universe. And to Ramakrishna, Holy Mother was this very Shakti, the mother of all. And this is why, as Ramakrishna said, she loved all. Now, this mood of being the mother of all was not something that came to Holy Mother in later years after Ramakrishna's passing away. It seemed to have been natural to her even when she was a child. In 1864, when she was just 11 years old, a terrible famine broke out in Jairambati. Holy Mother recalled, many starving people came to our house for food as our previous year's surplus rice was stored in a bin. She said, my father arranged to have several potfuls of khichdi made with that rice, mixing it with lentils. Sometimes the hungry people came in such numbers that the khichdi would run short and a fresh supply had to be cooked. And when the fresh, hot khichdi was served on the leaf plates, I used to fan it to cool it off quickly, because they ate with their fingers, and their hands. So touching the hot khichdi was horrible. She said people suffered unbearable hunger pangs as they waited. In her early days at Dakshineshwar, Holy Mother did not always have many companions because the close devotees, this was in the early 1970s, the close devotees did not start coming until, 1880 or something. I mean, it was 1870s I'm talking about. The close devotees didn't start coming until around 1880. So Holy Mother did not have many companions then. But even then, there was a group of fisherwomen who became devoted to her and loved her very much. Holy Mother became very close to these women, and the women also, completely forgetting caste differences. Holy Mother was a high Brahmin, and these were fisherwomen, very low caste. But completely forgetting caste differences, they took Holy Mother to be their very own, and they called her Mother. In fact, you might say that Holy Mother had a unique, a special relationship with these women. They were young, probably only in their teens and early 20s. They were married to fishermen, and they used to sell the fish in the market for their husbands. Whenever they came, Holy Mother would feed them with fruits and sweets and sometimes give them other gifts also. And she would also invite them to come for kirtans or yatras in the temple. And she would look after them in other ways as well. There's some very beautiful stories of how of Holy Mother's relationship with this woman, how she helped them in different ways, in Swami Chaitanananda's book on Holy Mother. Later, when Ramakrishna's young disciples started coming, the mood of a mother of all became so manifest that she sometimes even disobeyed Ramakrishna. Generally, Holy Mother cooked for the young disciples when they were at Dakshineshwar, but the master was very strict about how much they ate. He even told the Holy Mother how many pieces of chapati each one was to be given. Rakal should be given 6 pieces, Latu 5, and 4 each for Senior Gopal and Babaram. Now, even though Babaram was supposed to get 4 chapatis, Holy Mother would give him 6. But when Ramakrishna came to know about it, he immediately went to the Nahabat, where Holy Mother was staying, and complained that her indiscreet affection might hinder Babaram's spiritual development. Holy Mother would have none of this. She said, "Why are you so worried because he had 2 extra chapatis? I shall look after his future. Please don't make an issue about food." That was very unusual for a woman, especially a Brahmin woman in those days, to be so firm and disobey her husband and be firm about it. But Ramakrishna took it. As Swami Sarvapriyananda said, we don't go against what Holy Mother says. About Ramakrishna, we could argue, but not with Holy Mother. And so also Ramakrishna couldn't argue with her. Later in her life, of course, we know that all those who came to Holy Mother, whether disciples or devotees or workers or people suffering unbearable problems, to her, all of them were her children. It did not matter what caste or race they were, whether they were men or women, rich or poor, Indian or Westerners, all were her children. And she did her utmost to help them in any way she could, spiritually as well as otherwise. Now, the 4th way of seeing Ramakrishna's and Holy Mother's identity is in their vision as a vijnani, as seeing God in all. In the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna, we see the Master giving much emphasis to the idea of vijnana, that is, seeing God in all things and beings. He again and again states that this is the true goal of spiritual life. Swami Vivekananda also emphasized this, that to worship all beings as God is the highest worship. But we should note that this state of vijnana is not just about seeing God in everyone and everything outside us. It is also about seeing God within ourselves. In fact, seeing the divine in ourselves is fundamental to seeing the divine outside us. It's only then can we realize what true divinity is. Once when a monk asked Mahapurush Maharaj Swami Shivananda how he could see God in everything, Mahapurush replied, "My son, you will have to see God in your own heart first. How can it be possible to see him in all things outside unless you can see him first within yourself? When one is firmly established in one's realization of God as the self, one can see him everywhere, outside and inside. Then only will one attain this state as described as the whole universe is full of Brahman." To illustrate this process, Ramakrishna used to give the example of going up to a roof of a house. He said, First of all, you must discriminate following the method of neti, that is, not this, not this. Brahman is not the 5 elements. It's not the sense organs, nor the mind, nor the intelligence, nor the ego. Brahman is beyond all these cosmic principles. Ramakrishna said, you want to climb to the roof, then you must eliminate and leave behind all the steps one by one. The steps are by no means the roof, But after reaching the roof, you find that the steps are made of the same materials, brick, lime, and brick dust, as the roof. Similarly, after attaining the knowledge of Brahman, then one sees it is the supreme Brahman that has become the universe and the living beings and the 24 cosmic principles. After attaining Vijnana, Ramakrishna says, one can live in the world as well. Then one can clearly realize that God himself has become the universe and all living beings, that he is not outside the world. So it is after reaching the roof that we see the steps as made of the same materials. That is, after realizing the divine within, then we will be able to see the divine in all things and beings. We don't actually know when Holy Mother became aware of her divinity. As mentioned before, it must have been very early in her life, probably when she was just a child. Moreover, with her, the knowledge of her divinity and her identification of herself as the mother of all may have been spontaneous and may have come at the same time. But one thing seems certain. After realizing that divinity within, Holy Mother manifested that divinity as the Divine Mother, the Mother of all. She lived as that divinity, and through that she could see it in others, and see all as her children. Though we do not find in her conversations that Holy Mother talked specifically about Vijnana. This is what she is showing us in her life, that we must first realize that divine within us. Be that divine, live it, here and now. And this is how we can see it in others. After all, religion is not about what happened to someone thousands of years ago, or even 100 years ago, to someone far away. Religion is about who we are right now. That divine is right with us at every moment of our lives, at every step, and every moment presents us with an opportunity, no matter how mundane that moment might seem. This means that all our daily mundane decisions about our life have everything to do with religion, because how we make our decisions and choices has everything to do with how we regard ourselves and how we regard others. It was Holy Mother's awareness of who she was and her relationship to others that is the hallmark of her life. And this awareness had everything to do with her experience of herself and of others as divine, and of herself as the universal mother. So the secret to Holy Mother's life was her union of the idea of a mother, the universal mother, with this self-awareness. This was not just a superimposition of a mood. It was not something she worked at. Her awareness of herself as divine and her awareness of herself as the universal mother were one and the same. She knew herself to be the universal divine mother, and she knew all beings were her children. So it is this awareness that is everything. If a person is continually aware of herself or himself as divine, then what mundane desires could that person possibly have? None at all. That person is self-fulfilled, Atmarama, rejoicing in the self. And because there are no desires, there are also no afflictive emotions, lust, anger, jealousy, hatred. And this is why there are no barriers between oneself and others. And this is why Holy Mother could love all. And this is also why she completely lost herself in others. Once she said, now and then I think if this body, instead of being such a small frame of flesh and bone, if it were a big one, how many people I could help. Yet there's another aspect to this, and that is her vision as a Vijnani. One day she said, "Do you know what I have seen? I have seen that Thakur," she called Ramakrishna Thakur. A woman doesn't say the name of her husband. She called him Thakur. "I have seen that Thakur alone has become all. Whatever direction I look, I see Thakur. Thakur has taken the form of the lame, the blind, and all. There is none but Thakur. So I see that it is all his creation, and it is he who exists in different forms. It is he, not the jivas, who has been suffering. That is why I have to save all those tormented souls, whoever approaches me. It is like my helping him with his means." So here we truly see how Holy Mother was Ramakrishna Gata Pranam, totally immersed in Ramakrishna. She was immersed in him so much that she saw him in everyone and everything. And this is a particularly wonderful vision of a Vijnani. So Holy Mother not only had that vision of the Vijnani, but she also showed all of us how to have it through the ideal of loving all. As we said before, she was the exemplar that Ramakrishna left for us. This is the ideal that Ramakrishna asked all of us to reach. This was his goal for the modern world. Motherliness and compassion are good, but what we have to remember the level that Holy Mother took those qualities to, and also what was behind those qualities. She was the ideal we should look up to. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think we all appreciate it. It's a lot to absorb. I'm sure everyone's questions are going to follow mine. My name is Mira, and I greatly appreciate you visiting us. In my notes I wrote, and I was particularly struck when you said religion, when you were talking about religion and God, really defines like who you are and how that really frees you with awareness in regard to others and ourselves. I thought that was really beautiful, and I love how you said that. Would you mind elaborating on that more? It really touched me.
I think what I was saying was that every moment in our life is a moment of religion. We have to be aware of who we are every moment of our life. And this awareness is because this awareness of who we are, who others are, is we're interacting with people all the time. We're interacting in various opportunities. And so, if we get angry at somebody, it means we're not seeing the divine in that person, but we're also not seeing the divine in ourselves. So if we're truly aware of our divinity, we will naturally then feel that divinity in others. If we're truly aware of our divinity, you can't help it. You can't think that, I am divine. If you're thinking only I am divine, that's ego. And if we're truly aware of that divinity, we'll have love for everyone, every moment of our life. That divinity means love. When we feel that divinity within ourselves, we are feeling love. It's because that divinity is love, bliss. And so the love just naturally manifests. The more we feel this love, the love for God, the more we feel our identity with God, the more it comes out, the more it manifests. And the more it manifests, the more loving we are to others. Does that answer your question?
Thank you. That's beautiful. I guess when talking to somebody who's maybe not as on board with the overall concept and has never heard the concept, how would you suggest starting that conversation and trying to say to them, that person might be yelling at you and angry, but don't be frustrated because they're just as divine as you are inside. Let them go through their process. They'll calm down, right?
Yeah.
But when you're telling someone, I understand you're upset with someone, for example, but try to have compassion. That usually doesn't go over really well. What's the best way to say that to somebody who might not feel the divinity in themselves yet?
I think if we just, you mean that we are supposed to tell that person to
you can't tell. Just help them understand how. You can't tell somebody who's yelling at you to calm down or to have compassion, because they're obviously, if they could calm down, they would. So, just to kind of, what's a good way to introduce the conversation to somebody?
You might tell them that we're all human beings. We all have our flaws, and we're not perfect. You might think that you are, but in our human aspect, we're not perfect, and that all human beings are that way. That's the same way. In our human aspect, none of us are perfect, and we should remember that when we're dealing with other people, that you have your faults, I have my faults. You're seeing my faults, but I'm not seeing those faults as you see them. And so I think in this way, if we, the first, to understand what is a human being first. You're a human being, I'm a human being. We're all living beings. So we should all have compassion on each other for our, faults and flaws. And I think in that way, to start on a human level, that's probably the best way.
Perfect, thank you. Just a quick question. What was Holy Mother's daily practice? Did she have a daily meditation? Did she have a routine?
Yeah. When she was in Dakshineshwar, she'd get up like at 3, 4 a.m. and be practicing japa meditation for hours. And she, have you seen the pictures or have you been to India? Have you seen the pictures of where she lived when she was in Dakshineshwar? This tiny little, it looks like a little bigger when you see the outside, but when you go, it's just a tiny little room inside this bigger round building. And she lived there quietly. They said the other workers of the temple would be moving about, they never saw her. They would say, we've heard she's here, but we've never seen her. She would be hidden she was living there so quietly and so hidden, but her total life was just, early morning japa meditation, at nighttime japa meditation, and serving Ramakrishna and the disciples, cooking for them. And that was her life there.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Mataji. My name's Paritosh. For us, Mother is everything, and people in different times saw her as different manifestations of the mother. Some saw her as Jagadatri, some as Kali, some as... But Thakur said she was the embodiment of Saraswati. She's an incarnation of Saraswati. Is there a significance to that?
She was a giver of knowledge. So he left her behind to give people knowledge. I mean, this is why he left her behind, to bestow that knowledge on the knowledge of Brahman on people. And Swami Sarvapriyananda took that literally. He had to see her. He really wanted to see her and be blessed by her, because he felt like if he was blessed by her, he was blessed by Mother Saraswati.
So the different manifestations, it's like, is there a significance for the different manifestations? Like, one manifestation is giving something different, or it's up to us how we are.
I think it's up to us. You know, Ramakrishna said many things. He also said the mother who is in the temple at Dakshineshwar, meaning Mother Kali, is the same mother who gave birth to me, the same mother who's living in the Nahabad. You know, and like I said, Holy Mother used to look upon him as Kali, and he also looked, made this statement. He told her also that the same mother who is in the temple is the same mother residing in you. So he was telling her she's also Mother Kali. So she was the embodiment of all gods and goddesses, like Ramakrishna was. In the puja that we do, in the daily puja and the special pujas that we do, Ramakrishna is called Sarvadeva Devi Swarupa. And Holy Mother is also called Sarvadeva Devi Swarupani. The embodiment, Ramakrishna is the embodiment of all gods and goddesses, and Holy Mother is the embodiment of all gods and goddesses. And we repeat this over and over and again in the worship that is done. That's kind of the offering mantra. The Om Aing Sarvadeva Devi Swarupaya Sri Ramakrishnaya Namaha. Om Aing Ring, the mother bija, Om Aing Ring Sarvadeva Devi Swarupanyai Sri Sarda Devyai Namaha. Those are repeated over and over again in the puja. So we have to remember that we can't take this, oh, she was Saraswati, but she wasn't this person. They also said she was Jagadatri because she was born in the village where Jagadatri was worshipped, and her own mother worshipped Jagadatri. They started worshiping a formal worship of Jagadatri. And they say her mother did that because Jagadatri was her own daughter. So we can't, take it, she was Saraswati, but not this, They were both the embodiment of all the gods and goddesses.
One last curious question. I visited Jairambari a few years ago, and so I stayed there I just went there for a few hours. But the Swami in charge was saying, Holy Mother used to say, whenever you come here, stay for 3 days. Is there any story behind that, or no?
No, I think it's some Indian custom. When you go to a holy place, you should stay at least 3 days. I've heard the Swamis tell the devotees when going to Ridgely, stay there for at least 3 nights.
That's true.
So, I don't know where it came from, but that's kind of a custom, I guess, for staying in a holy place. Stay there at least 3 nights.
Thank you.
Okay.
Do you have anybody?
Now, do I come down there? I don't know or do I do the closing prayer?
Yes,
okay.
yes. Oh, we have another question?
Oh.
Yeah. Oh, hi. Hi, I didn't see you.
Pranam. My name is Shri. So, Thakur and Ma are one and the same. Yet, I'm sure many of us, when Swami Sarvapriyananda says to us about something, ask Ma, pray to Ma, we find ourselves, I find myself repeating the same prayer twice. But Thakur and Ma are one, and sometimes I say to myself, I'm just going to say this to them, the oneness, and then again I'm repeating to her because she's...
Oh, you mean you say it to Thakur and then you say the same prayer to Mother.
Right.
I see. Well, they're pretty close. They're sitting pretty close together. I think if one hears the prayer, the other one will hear it.
Well, right. But so she is the Shakti.
Yeah.
So
they're one and the same.
it's all in my mind. It's almost like she's saying, "Well, make it so."
But it's funny though. In India, I heard several times the Swamis telling people, "You can pray to Ramakrishna, but pray to him only for devotion, knowledge, and stuff. But if you have other things, go to Mother. Go to Mother." Ramakrishna. He just, he thinks, oh, they're asking for glass beads from me. I can bestow anything, and they're just asking for glass beads. But Mother has the mother heart. She sees the pain and suffering in the family life and that. So go to Mother for those things.
So would you say that she is his heart?
Yeah. Really. Yeah. Okay. The prana. Ramakrishna Gata Prana. Prana means both the life force and heart. So she is the heart of Ramakrishna.
Pranam, thank you.
Om Purnamada Purnamidang Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Tat Sat.
Mataji, on behalf of all of us, I think we feel that you have actually absorbed us in Holy Mother today. Thank you so much.
I'd like to be absorbed.